The kid's mom is infertile and old. The kid must be disabled anyway.
I ran into my ex-husband by chance, 4 years after our divorce. He was walking in front of the station, arm in arm, with a young woman. I never wanted to see him again, but it couldn't be helped. There I was, unable to run away, holding my 3-year-old son's hand.
Is that kid mine? I told you not to have it.
It's none of your business anymore, is it?
Sure. I have no intention of acknowledging him. Just don't bother me.
He's just the worst kind of man. Deep down, I'm so glad I left him. But the woman next to my ex has been acting strange this whole time. Her face is pale, and her lips are trembling. She's frightened. Is that your child? She muttered. Who could have imagined the turmoil my son and I were about to be drawn into? My name is Natalie, a 46-year-old office worker. Now, it's just me and my 3-year-old son Max living together. He was born when I was 43, through a pregnancy, at an advanced stage, but he's growing up healthy and strong, which makes me incredibly happy. I often think to myself how glad I am to have had him. When the biological father found out I was pregnant, he told me to get an abortion. Those were truly tough and painful days. I was reminiscing about those hellish days. After graduating from college, I got a job at a company and worked as the CEO's secretary. I hate to toot my own horn, but I was good at being considerate, and the CEO valued me highly. During that time, I met the CEO's son, Ethan. I caught Ethan's eye.
Natalie, it was love at first sight. Please marry me.
Ethan, raised in a privileged environment, had his unreliable moments, but that only tickled my maternal instincts, and I agreed to marry him. Since I was already favored by Ethan's father, the CEO, he quickly approved of our marriage.
Marrying a reliable person like Natalie will surely settle Ethan down. I'm really glad. Natalie, please take care of him.
Thank you. I'm happy to hear you say that. Ethan wanted me to support him at home, so I quit my job and became a full-time homemaker.
I'm the eldest son, so I plan to take over my father's company in the future. Please support me.
Understood. I'll support you with all I've got. My in-laws were very kind, and we had a harmonious relationship, so I started living with them right after getting married. However, my mill was frail and needed care, which was unfortunate. My Phil was very kind to her, always speaking to her gently, and we wanted to be a couple like them. But that dream was not to be. My Phil was a very wealthy man, and we had an elderly live-in helper named Grace. Grace and I took care of my mill and the household chores. Grace was a good person, and we lived together, helping each other out like a real family.
Natalie, thank you always. I only had a son, so having you feels like having a real daughter, and it makes me happy.
Thank you. I lost my parents early, so being treated kindly by you and my in-laws makes me feel grateful to be part of this family. My parents died early in an accident, so I was raised by my grandparents. My grandparents passed away as if they were waiting for me to find a job, so I was truly grateful to have met my in-laws. My married life was smooth sailing, but my husband's business affairs were not going so well. Though my husband intended to take over the company, his father felt Ethan was not up to the task in terms of management. As a result, my Phil was quite strict in his guidance towards Ethan.
My dad never trusts me. He refuses to retire. As long as he's active, I can't become the president.
My husband complained discontentedly. A few years later, ominous clouds began to gather over my marriage. Even after 5 years of marriage, we were unable to have children. Ethan blamed me.
Why can't you have kids? All my friends had kids right after getting married. It's embarrassing that I'm the only one without kids.
That's not fair. It's wrong to just decide it's my fault.
There's no way the problem is with me. It has to be your fault.
The conversation was futile. He baselessly decided that the infertility was my fault. While my husband was like this, my in-laws never pressured us about having children. I could tell they were considerate of me. They must have wanted to see their grandchildren too. Linda, I'm sorry we haven't been able to give you a grandchild yet.
What are you talking about? It's not your fault, Natalie.
That's right. Children are a blessing, and it's okay if we don't have them.
We're just happy to have you with us, Natalie.
My in-law said this, but I wanted children too, and I wanted to give them grandchildren, so I started considering infertility treatment. However, my husband was not very enthusiastic about it, but I insisted, and he accompanied me to the hospital for an examination. The results showed that I had a condition that made my fallopian tubes prone to blockage, making it difficult for me to conceive.
See? I knew the problem was with you. I regret marrying you. It's like I drew the short straw. This is so frustrating.
My husband blamed me as if he had been proven right, but it was also found that he had a condition that made it difficult to conceive. His sperm count was low, and their motility was poor.
What? No way.
However, the doctor said it wasn't entirely impossible, so we were advised to continue treatment. I wanted to continue the treatment, but my husband was against it.
I don't want to undergo such treatment. It's not like it's impossible for us to have kids.
More than 10 years passed, and we remained childless. My husband had stopped saying he wanted children. Although my relationship with my in-laws was good, my relationship with my husband had become strained. He started coming home late at night, often after drinking, and his work was fraught with failures. He was frequently scolded by his father, the president, and was always in a bad mood.
It's your fault for not supporting me as my wife.
He would lash out at me like that. Then, at the age of 43, I miraculously became pregnant. I was so happy and relieved that the difficult infertility treatment had paid off, I couldn't help but cry. I thought he would be happy, so I told my husband, but his reaction was unexpected. Good news. Happy for you. I'm pregnant.
Bringing this up now. What am I supposed to say?
What? Aren't you happy?
Do you even realize how old you are? You're a 43-year-old woman. Don't you know there are risks with late pregnancies?
What do you mean?
It means the child could have disabilities. I want you to get an abortion.
What?
I've decided to marry a younger woman who doesn't have these risks. Let's get a divorce. I'll give you alimony,
How could he say such a thing? I felt like I had been thrown from heaven to hell. Unable to bear it, I decided to pack my things and leave the house. But first, I had to say goodbye to my in-laws. They were shocked by the sudden news. They asked me to stay and have the grandchild here, but living with my husband had become unbearable. Ignoring my in-laws' pleas, I left the house. After receiving the alimony, I signed the divorce papers, changed my phone number, and cut ties with my in-laws. I heard my husband planned to remarry the new secretary his father had hired. It's a trivial matter now, but it seems my husband has a thing for secretaries. It would probably be uncomfortable for his new partner if I were around. I gave birth to my baby on my own. It was a beautiful baby boy. Raising a child alone was challenging, but my son was irreplaceably precious to me. One day, when my son was 3 years old, I unexpectedly ran into my ex-husband in front of the station.
Isn't that Natalie?
Hearing a familiar voice, I had a bad feeling. I gripped my son Max's hand tightly. Seeing Max, my ex laughed and said,
Given the IVF and your age, the kid's probably got problems, huh?
My ex was walking arm in arm with a young woman. Could she be his new wife? I never wanted to see him again, but it couldn't be helped. There I was, unable to run away, holding my 3-year-old son's hand.
Is that kid mine? I told you not to have him.
It's none of your business anymore, is it?
Sure. I have no intention of acknowledging him. Just don't bother me.
He was an awful man, and deep down, I'm so glad I left him. But the woman next to my ex had been acting strange the whole time. Her face pale, her lips trembling. She's frightened. Is that your child? She muttered. She was whispering something into my ex-husband's ear. I couldn't hear well because her voice was so low, but I faintly caught the words, "Your father's estate is."
Huh?
Ethan widened his eyes like saucers and stared intently at my son. Then he glared at me and yelled,
You're a stranger to me now. Don't you dare come near my family's home, ever.
And with that, the two of them ran off as if they were fleeing from me. What in the world was it about? I couldn't make heads or tails of it. But being told to stay away made me think there must be some secret at my in-laws' place. Curious about my ex and that woman's reactions, I found myself heading to my in-laws' home for the first time in 4 years. The helper, Grace, greeted me with tears in her eyes, saying, "It's been so long, madam. I'm so glad to see you." My Mill had passed away 2 years ago, and my Phil was bedridden due to illness. Seeing me, my Phil was overjoyed despite his frail condition. But he looked haggard and pale and sick.
You've come at last, Natalie. I've been looking for you everywhere.
David, it's been a while. I'm sorry for not visiting sooner.
And who is this boy?
This is Max. He's 3 years old now.
So, you had Ethan's child.
I nodded firmly. My Phil tenderly stroked Max's head with a look of affection. He then handed me a business card, urging me to visit a lawyer. The lawyer was a close friend of my Phil. Following my father-in-law's advice, I visited the lawyer and was shocked by the startling truth he revealed. 2 months later, I received a call from Grace, the household helper, informing me of my father-in-law's passing. She also shared some intriguing news with me. 3 days later, dressed in mourning clothes, and with my son by my side, I headed to the funeral service. The ceremony had already started, with my ex-husband delivering the eulogy. The young woman I had met previously was standing close by him.
My father may have passed away, but I will be taking over the company and protecting it firmly, along with Molly, my father's secretary. We will also build our family together, so I ask for your support.
He spoke without shedding a tear, delivering his speech with gusto. During the eulogy, Ethan noticed me and my son and shouted in surprise,
Natalie, what are you doing here? Get out. This place isn't for you.
Ethan ordered his employee to drag me out of the funeral hall. I was upset at how rudely my own son was being treated, even though I had Max with me, but I couldn't resist when several men started pulling at my arms. The mourners were shocked by the commotion, looking at us with a buzz of whispers.
Please, everyone, be quiet.
The person who stopped the commotion. It was a lawyer who had been of service to my Phil for many years.
There is a will that the late president asked to be announced at his funeral.
Stop it. There's no need to say it. I, his only son, will inherit everything.
Ethan tried to stop him, but the lawyer ignored him and began reading the will. The contents were shocking. The company was to be left to the vice president, who had worked hand in hand with the president to grow the company. As for his son Ethan, lacking in managerial talent, he was advised to work under the vice president. His estate was to be left entirely to the child born to his ex-wife, me, if there was one, appointing me as the guardian. I was not surprised, as the lawyer had informed me of everything in advance, but the mourners were in an uproar. Ethan's fiancée bit her lip, her eyes darting around in confusion. She was working as a secretary to my Phil, so it seems that she knew the contents of the will by some means. So when she first saw Max, she was shocked because she thought Max would take away the inheritance.
What about my position then?
People going to jail don't have a position to worry about.
What? What are you talking about?
I know why your dad suddenly fell ill. Ethan looked at me, his face turning pale, glaring at me as if he saw a demon. In fact, I had heard from the helper, Grace. She saw Ethan and his fiancée Molly putting flowers in my father-in-law's food. Grace found it suspicious and secretly took photos with her cell phone. I got those photos from Grace, and after researching online, discovered that the flower is highly toxic. It's a common flower, but both its stem and root are poisonous, and even drinking water from a vase with this flower can be lethal.
That's a lie. You made this up.
There's photographic evidence and a witness, so there's no escaping it. Ethan, cornered, was desperately thinking of a way out. Then he began to shout.
It's not my fault. It was Molly. She instigated everything.
He tried to shift the blame onto his fiancée Molly. Molly panicked.
You were the one who said we couldn't become the president until your father was gone and asked for my cooperation.
You said you overheard Dad and the lawyer discussing leaving the estate to Natalie's son, which is why I felt I had no choice but to do what I did to Dad. It's your fault.
How dare you blame me? You were the one who brought the poisonous flowers, not me.
Both of them ended up confessing everything. They effectively admitted their guilt in front of all the mourners. Ethan, in a complete about-face, began apologizing to me.
Natalie, I'm so sorry. Please, tell everyone this was all a lie. My life is over if the police get involved. I beg you.
It's too late for that. I've already submitted the evidence to the police. They should be arriving any minute now. Leaving behind a wailing Molly and a stunned ex-husband, I left the scene. I heard the sound of a police car approaching. I didn't want Max to witness any more of his father's disgrace. Subsequently, my husband and Molly were taken away by the police. The crime of taking his father's life is serious, and he has no remorse, so it will take him many years to get out of the fence. With the inheritance left by my Phil, I bought a house in the suburbs where I now live with my son. Having witnessed my ex-husband blinded by greed to the extent of harming his own father, I am committed to living a modest life to ensure we don't fall into similar pitfalls. I continue to work as before, pouring love into raising my son. Just seeing my son grow up healthy and happy fills me with contentment, a sentiment that defines my current state of happiness.
So, there's no money left in this house, right? We don't need to deal with them anymore, do we?
That's true. I guess we don't need our parents anymore.
What?
I mean, cutting ties with you, you know. Humoring a broke old lady doesn't benefit us at all.
Right? She's been trying to mooch off us, and even without a penny to her name, she expects us to take care of her. Better to cut ties now.
I understand your point. So you're saying your inheritance will be just $30,000, and that's the severance for ending the parent-child relationship, right?
Yay, that's fine.
After George passed away, Michael and Daisy showed their true colors. They confronted me with a declaration of disownment, as if to take revenge for their failed plans. $30,000 is a lot of money, but they will regret accepting that money. 2 years after George's death, I was sitting on a park bench, eating my sandwich. The peaceful moment vanished with a familiar voice.
Isn't that Mom over there?
What?
Really? Look, she looks so tired, feeding pigeons in the park.
No, I'm not feeding the pigeons.
That's true. We took all the money after all, so of course you'd be homeless, huh? How's the homeless life treating you?
My anger had long passed, leaving me speechless and aghast. I sighed softly and resumed my lunch.
Mom, why are you ignoring me? Oh right, we've cut ties, so I shouldn't call you Mom anymore.
How about homeless hag then?
That's a good one, homeless hag, haha.
Michael and Daisy kept mocking me, taking advantage of my silence. After finishing my sandwich, it was time to reveal the truth to them. You've been going on about homeless this, homeless that, but who are you talking about?
We're talking about you, homeless hag.
I'm not homeless, dear. I live over there.
What?
I pointed to a building and explained the truth to Michael and Daisy.
What?
Shocked by the truth. It was too late for them to regret. I am Emily. I'm a 60-year-old housewife. My husband, George, is 67 and still working. George quit his job about 20 years ago to start an IT company. The company has grown successfully, especially in the last 10 years, as he ventured into new fields, leading to rapid growth. Now it's a significant enterprise. I don't quite understand all this data science and big data stuff that George talks about. Given his age, George has already retired as CEO, but he continues to work as the chairman. However, he seems to think it's about time to step down completely. We have one son, Michael. When George retired as CEO, Michael didn't take over the company. He isn't helping with George's company at all, quite the contrary.
I don't want to be seen as living off my father, so I'll do my best on my own.
After graduating from college, Michael joined a company unrelated to IT and moved out. I was a bit disappointed when Michael didn't take over George's company because I had hoped he would. But as a proud parent, I felt a bit proud when I saw him choose not to rely on his powerful parents, and I couldn't help but smile when I heard his decision.
I won't force you, so do what you want.
George seemed to share my sentiments, offering a supportive nudge to Michael, despite looking a bit disappointed. Everything was fine until Michael got a job. After that, he rarely contacted us, only coming home about once a year. Lately, he just calls and doesn't visit at all. Well, I suppose that's not unusual for men. And as long as he's doing fine, that's what matters. Still, I can't help but wish he would reach out more. Then one day, Michael called. It's rare for you to call.
I have something to report. I'll be coming home soon.
What's the report?
I'm getting married, so I want to introduce her to you.
Really? That's wonderful. I was already happy to hear from Michael, but I was ecstatic to hear about his marriage, and I couldn't help but exclaim loudly. My sudden outburst made George, who was leisurely watching TV, jump and turn towards me. I returned his glance with a beaming smile. He looked puzzled, unaware of Michael's marriage news. Michael would bring his fiancée home in a month. Michael will be bringing his bride-to-be home soon.
That's still 3 weeks away.
3 weeks will fly by. Since Michael's call, I've been reminding George almost daily that Michael will be home soon with his bride-to-be. George might be tired of hearing it, but I can't help repeating it. I just can't help being so excited about it. But this marriage announcement would soon bring me a sense of unease. A month later, Michael and his fiancée arrived.
We're home.
Welcome. Come in. George is waiting in the living room.
Thank you.
His fiancée, Daisy, looked young and cute like an idol, instead of having the sleek beauty of a model. Her nervousness, glancing around at the entrance, was endearing. As I led them to the living room where George was waiting, she kept looking around.
Welcome. Have a seat.
In the living room, George seated Michael and Daisy opposite of him. I sat next to him. Daisy continued to look around curiously. Feeling a bit embarrassed by her scrutinizing gaze, I asked her, "Is there something you're curious about?"
Oh, number, it's just. This is so different from what I imagined.
What?
I had heard that George runs a large company.
Hey, don't say embarrassing things like that out of the blue.
Daisy's comment and Michael's flustered attempt to cover her made George and me exchange glances and burst into laughter.
Was the house more ordinary than you expected?
No, it's not that.
Don't worry about it. We're not really into material things. So even though George runs a big company, our house is just average size. And we don't deck ourselves out in designer brands or have fancy meals every day.
I see. I'm sorry for the odd comment out of the blue.
I told you, there's no need to be nervous, right? You see, Dad isn't a very imposing person.
It seems Michael laughed along too. And with Michael's laughter, it appeared that Daisy's nerves had eased, and the conversation flowed smoothly after that. Daisy looks young but is actually 27, and talking to her, you can tell she's really mature. I had been worried about Michael not marrying even after turning 30, but now that he's going to be happily married, I feel relieved. 3 months later, Michael got married. It's joyous in itself, but Michael's marriage brought an unexpected bonus.
Hello, Mom. Everything okay over there?
Yes, everything's fine.
You and Dad are getting up there in age, so please take care of yourselves.
It seems like that's all you talk about every time you call. Since getting married, Michael has started calling once a month. Daisy probably found out he hadn't been calling at all before and suggested he should call regularly. Michael, not used to calling us, seems unsure what to talk about, always asking about our health instead of discussing his work or marital life. While I wish he'd share more, I always listen with a smile, enjoying his concern. One day, a while after Michael got married, he and Daisy visited us at home. I prepared some homemade appetizers to welcome them with enthusiasm. However, Daisy seemed a bit displeased. "Daisy, is there something you can't eat?"
No, it's not that. Thank you, I'll eat.
Daisy responded with a smile, but I didn't miss the brief shadow that crossed her face when she saw the appetizers. And she hardly touched them. Maybe there was something she couldn't eat after all. I felt anxious, constantly checking Daisy's expressions, worrying I had made her uncomfortable. I became so fixated on her reaction that I spoke less, even as everyone else seemed to be enjoying the conversation. Eventually, it was time to see Michael and Daisy off. While George and Daisy talked at the door, Michael whispered to me, out of their earshot,
Mom, homemade appetizers aren't really a thing anymore.
"That's not true, is it? There's nothing old or new about homemade appetizers, right?"
That mindset is outdated, Mom. The appetizers you made prioritize shelf life over appeal, right? Nowadays, it's all about using fancy ingredients for appetizers. Daisy must have been disappointed.
Really? I guess I'm out of touch with what young people like these days. I'm sorry. While I believe there's nothing wrong with making appetizers, I was too concerned about Daisy's impression and ended up apologizing to Michael in a low voice. After the small appetizer incident, our monthly calls became less frequent, dropping to once every 2 or 3 months. I felt down, thinking I had upset Daisy with the appetizers. Seeing me like this, George comforted me gently.
Daisy wouldn't get upset over appetizers. Maybe work is just busier, or continuing the monthly calls was too much. Going from no contact to once a month is a big jump, isn't it? Even if it's every 3 months, it's good that he calls at all.
His words lifted my spirits a bit. However, even then, I couldn't say it was a complete recovery, and negative feelings remained in a corner of my heart. And it seemed that the negative emotions lingering in my heart had the power to attract bad things. 6 months later, George fell ill.
This is it. I can't work anymore. Guess it's the right time to retire.
In a hospital bed, George seemed relieved about not having to work anymore. But having been married for 30 years, I understand. He must be thinking he was frustrated about being forced into retirement by illness. He smiled to avoid worrying me, and that consideration pierced my heart. Of course, I had told Michael about his illness.
What? Dead's ill. I'll come to visit soon.
Michael's response over the phone seemed indifferent. George's condition worsened after he collapsed. Still, Michael and Daisy never visited him in the hospital. Gradually, the once every 3-month calls ceased, and they never returned home after he fell ill. Time passed, and 3 years later, George passed away.
So, did finally kick the bucket. Well, he was over 70 and had made his company successful, so he probably lived a content life, right?
Even when I told Michael over the phone about George's passing, his reaction was indifferent. They showed up at the funeral but didn't help out, and as soon as the service was over, Michael and Daisy quickly left. Remembering them laughing as they got into their car, my sadness at George's absence turned into anger. However, this anger was fleeting, and soon I was overwhelmed with sadness again. There was so much to do, like paperwork and clearing up, but I couldn't get anything to progress as I wanted. About a month after George passed, I finally started to feel a bit better. It seems time does heal most wounds. But just as I was regaining my spirits, a new problem emerged. One morning, while doing laundry, the doorbell rang.
Mom, open up.
Looking at the intercom monitor, I saw Michael and Daisy standing there. Confused by their sudden visit, I headed to the front door.
Dad's office was this way.
Hold on.
As I opened the door, without any greetings, Michael and Daisy hurriedly entered and made a beeline for George's office. Left at the entrance in a momentary lapse, I hurried after them.
Where is it?
It's probably in one of these drawers, I guess.
The door to George's office was left open, and I could hear they were rummaging through the drawers. What are you two doing? They stopped opening drawers and turned to look at me. I had a hunch, but I was praying it wasn't true.
It's about time to talk about the inheritance, right? So, we came to collect what's ours.
He was the CEO and chairman of a big company, and it seems like he didn't spend much, so there must be plenty of money.
Sadly, my prayers went unanswered. Michael and Daisy threw a few words at me and resumed rifling through the drawers. Seeing them act like thieves, I lost the will to stop them.
Found it. Is this it?
Oh, is it there? What's inside? Haha.
Excitedly, they flipped through George's bank book. But their expressions darkened as they saw the balance.
What's this? There's hardly any money in here.
Damn. So, there wasn't much money after all.
It was clear they had come looking for George's money. But I couldn't grasp what they were talking about, and my thoughts froze, leaving me standing there, dumbfounded.
Mom, you have been living a comfortable life, but what a way to end it, ho.
Michael's voice snapped me back to reality. As my consciousness cleared, I saw them smirking at me. Still not understanding the situation, I was ready to be ridiculed as I asked Michael, "What do you mean by a terrible end?"
No need to play dumb, we know.
George's company was taken over when he got sick, right?
That means it was in the red and got absorbed by another company, right?
What? What are you talking about?
A guy holding a company that's almost bankrupt surely doesn't have any money. Still, we thought that being at the top of a big company, even if it was going downhill, there would be some money left. My plan is ruined.
Yeah, what a disappointment.
Wait, what are you talking about? Despite listening to them, I couldn't understand a thing, and frustrated, I raised my voice. But they, still with their villainous grins, were unfazed by my outburst.
I didn't join Dad's company because it seemed like a tough job with all that complex stuff. Why sweat it out at Dad's company when I could just wait and inherit his fortune, right? Exactly. It's smarter to just coast through an easy job, huh? Aw man, yet things didn't go as planned.
I tried to stay on your good side at first, being all nice and making Michael call you. Even endured those awful homemade appetizers.
You stopped all that once it was clear Dad wasn't a tough guy, right?
And you just accepted it as downgrading from a sure-win life to a normal one when you heard Dad sold the company.
I'd give up, but you'd expect at least $100,000 in savings, right? Look at this bank book, only $30,000. I wonder if closing a company costs a lot.
Well, we should be grateful for these $30,000 and just take it.
Listening to Michael and Daisy blabbering selfishly, my anger was on the verge of exploding. But I clenched my teeth and pushed down the words rising in my throat.
What's wrong? Your face is all red. So, there's no money left in this house, right? No need to bother with you anymore, right?
That's true. We don't need a parent who spoiled my plan.
What?
We're cutting ties with you. No point in sucking up to a broke mill, right?
We don't want to be hassled for money or care when you don't have a penny to your name. Better to cut ties now.
I get your point. So your inheritance is just that $30,000. And that's our severance for cutting ties, right? I can keep the rest, right?
Yay, that's fine. We don't need this house, and we don't want to be saddled with any debt. We're good with just the $30,000.
Michael and Daisy left laughing, just like at the funeral. I didn't want to give them even $30,000. $30,000 is a lot of money. But later, they will regret receiving that $30,000. 2 years after George passed away. I was roaming around town on an errand. Moving around is tough when you're past your mid-60s. Exhausted, I decided to rest on a park bench. With a heave, I sat down and took out a sandwich I bought from the supermarket for a quick lunch. As I ate, pigeons gathered around. Watching the pigeons, I felt at peace. Indeed, they are a symbol of peace. But that tranquil moment was shattered by a familiar voice.
Isn't that Mom over there?
What?
It's Drew. Look, she's got that tired look, feeding pigeons in the park.
No, I'm not feeding the pigeons.
Huh, that's right. Still not spending on appearances, huh? Oh, I guess you have no money left to spend. We took all the money, so naturally, you'd be homeless, right? How's homeless life treating you?
Michael and Daisy never really listened to me. My anger has long passed, and now I'm just speechless and dumbfounded. I sighed quietly and resumed my lunch.
Mom, why are you ignoring me? Oh, right, we cut ties, so I shouldn't call you Mom anymore.
How about homeless hag then?
That's a good one, homeless hag.
They continued to mock me, laughing at their own cruel jokes. After finishing my sandwich, it was time to reveal the truth to them. You've been going on about homeless this, homeless that, but who are you talking about?
We're talking about you, homeless hag.
I'm not homeless, dear. I live over there.
What?
I pointed to a building. They slowly turned their gaze in the direction I was pointing. Though it appeared small and distant, it was a fine high-rise condo. I thought luxurious condos weren't my thing at first, but living there proved to be convenient. That condo has barrier-free units for the elderly, and I live in one. Plus, with care staff on site 24/7, I feel safe knowing help is always available.
What? Stop bluffing. There's no way a homeless hag like you could afford to live there.
Well, yes, that's the condo George left for me.
What do you mean?
He actually owned 5 condos. I moved into one, and I'm the owner of the others, so I have rental income. That's why I'm not struggling for living expenses.
Ha ha ha. If you're going to lie, at least make it a believable one.
It's true. I'll show you proof, but only a little since I don't usually show off. I pulled out documents related to the ownership and rental agreements of the condos from my bag, and they were so shocked their jaws could have dropped. My errand today was related to these condos, so I happened to have the documents with me. They seemed skeptical, but after seeing these documents, they finally understood I was telling the truth.
Where did Dad get that kind of money?
You two thought Dad's company was sold at a loss, but it was actually a proper sale. He bought these condos as an investment with the money from selling the company. That's why there was only $30,000 in savings. I think he wanted to leave an inheritance in a form other than cash. Maybe he still wanted to do something business-like after suddenly retiring due to his illness. Realizing the truth about the condos but only receiving $30,000, they were in a daze. However, claiming to own 5 buildings might seem like a stretch, as Michael suggested. Building one condo costs millions. For 5, it would be hundreds of millions. It's unlikely to have that much money just from selling a company. And even big corporations can't easily build 5 condos. Actually, I own units in different buildings, not entire buildings. When I said 5 buildings, I meant that I own units in 5 different buildings, totaling 6 units. It was easier to say it that way. They seem to have misunderstood that I own entire condo buildings, but I can't be bothered to correct them, so I'll let it be. Moreover, it ended up sounding like I owned 5 whole buildings when I actually have units in 5 buildings, but owning 6 units is still significant. Each condo unit he bought costs over $500,000. So with 6 units, that's over $3 million. He invested most of the money from selling his company into these condos. He must have had a lot of fun making one last big purchase with the money he worked his whole life to earn.
Now that you have so many, shouldn't you share one with us?
Yeah, managing all that must be tough for you alone. We can help.
When they learned I was an owner of multiple condo units, they became cautious in their words, their speech awkward. Their attitudes flipped entirely. Of course, I can't trust such people. No need for concern from someone I've cut ties with.
What?
Wait, even if we've cut ties, we're still family. That means when you're gone, the condos automatically come to me, right?
Yeah, right. No need to apologize to this old lady here.
They began to smirk again like villains. But I have no intention of handing over George's precious legacy to such unkind people. Unfortunately, you won't be getting anything.
Planning to write in your will not to pass on anything to me, that's useless. I know my rights as a child can't be easily nullified.
Yes, that's why I plan to dispose of the assets eventually.
What?
I intend to transfer the condos to George's acquaintances.
What?
I live in one of the 6 condo units, but the rest are inhabited by George's friends. They are all married and running their own businesses, so I don't expect them to move until I pass on. Thus, I don't worry about vacancies. The people living in my condo units have supported me and were helped by George during his lifetime, so when my time comes to join him, I plan to transfer the condos to them. I think it's much better than leaving them to Michael and Daisy. Also, I'm thinking of donating the money gradually accumulating from the condo rents to his cherished company. It won't be a large amount, but since I've already given Michael and Daisy $30,000, I don't want to give them a penny more. Well, when my time comes, I'll make sure to leave absolutely nothing behind.
What?
Michael collapsed to the ground, drained of strength upon realizing I had no intention of leaving anything behind. $30,000 is a lot of money, but it's not an unattainable amount for Michael to earn. Of course, he would regret throwing away the chance for the condos for just $30,000. It's not pleasant to talk about life after you're gone while you're still alive. But this time, I took pleasure in seeing their frantic faces. Well, I've got other things to do, so I'll be going now. Goodbye, estranged strangers. After my break, I left a park with a light step. Michael was so regretful about missing out on the condos that he ended up buying a small apartment building. But driven by his frustration and lack of knowledge, he struggled with increasing occupancy, and the building seems to be plagued with vacancies. Consequently, he's been dealing with ongoing financial losses. After sinking his savings into the apartment and taking out loans, he can't sustain this forever and will eventually need to sell. If that happens, he might be left with a massive debt. And if he struggles to find a buyer, the situation could become even more dire. If no buyer is found, he might have to demolish the building and sell just the land, which would be a terrifying thought with demolition costs added to the debt. I live comfortably in a senior-friendly condo. The residents of my condo, who were helped by George, also look after me. While living alone as an elderly person can be lonely, that's not the case for me. The weather looks nice today, so I might go for another walk in the park.
It happened at my granddaughter's graduation party. On that day, my daughter, Emily, and I were busy preparing for the party. In the living room, my husband, Steve, our granddaughter, Melissa, and my daughter-in-law, Jennifer, were relaxing. Oh, it seems lively here. From the faint conversation between Melissa and Jennifer in the living room, I realized that she made a cake for us. Even though Jennifer was young, she was very thoughtful and kind to her niece, Melissa, whom she met only occasionally. For this graduation party, she even offered to cook herself. I was really happy about Jennifer's kindness. The next moment, however,
What?
my husband, without a word, grabbed the plate with the homemade cake and threw it into the kitchen trash can. Jennifer was so surprised that she froze on the spot. I was cooking in the kitchen when I was shocked by my husband's strange behavior and involuntarily raised my voice. "Honey, isn't that Jennifer's cooking? What are you doing?" I thought all three of them were getting along well, waiting together, but what's going on with this situation? Confused, I was then approached by Melissa with tears in her eyes. It seems Melissa was also shocked by the sudden disposal of the cake. Poor thing. Just as I thought to say something to Melissa, it happened.
"Grandpa, thank you."
Melissa gently hugged my husband and began to sob quietly. I am Karen Murphy, 60 years old. I live quietly with my husband Steve, 3 years older than me, and I work part-time at the local supermarket. We have 2 children. The first is our daughter Emily, who will soon be 37 years old. Emily married her college sweetheart and now lives in the neighboring town. The second is our son, James, who is 35 years old. James married Jennifer, whom he met at work about 1.5 years ago. They now live in a new apartment close to our house. James is serious and kind-hearted, but a workaholic. So, even when he came back to our house once in a while, all he said was about work. Even when he was drunk, he didn't get any romance stories. Therefore, my husband and I thought he might remain single forever. However, 2 years ago, when he came home as usual, Jennifer was with him. And without any preamble, he introduced her as his fiancée, Jennifer. We were completely taken by surprise. as we had not been informed at all. Although James had always been inattentive to matters other than work, this surprise visit was truly unexpected, and later, he got a gentle scolding from my husband. However, since then, he has started to communicate and consult with us in advance. Thanks to that, his wedding and moving went smoothly. His wife, Jennifer, was in her early 20s, more than 10 years younger than James. She worked as a receptionist at a company, spoke politely, and had a kind demeanor. Moreover, she was very thoughtful and always took the initiative to help with household chores when she came to our house with James. She is such a considerate and well-put-together person. My son is lucky to have married such a wonderful woman. James might not be attentive to anything other than work, but we thought he could be happy with Jennifer, who chose to be with him. However, a few months later, Jennifer's behavior began to change dramatically. It started when James was scheduled to go on a week-long business trip. Normally, his department had frequent day trips or overnight business trips, but this time it was unusually a long one. 3 nights before the trip.
Hello, Mom. It's James. Sorry to spring this on you, but can you look after Jennifer next week?
What's happened all of a sudden? Is something wrong?
I have to go on a business trip for a week starting next week, and Jennifer hasn't been feeling well lately. So, can you call her or check on her sometimes?
Well, that is concerning. I'll talk to Jennifer directly and see if there's anything specific she needs help with.
Thanks, that's a big help. Let me know if anything comes up.
The next day, I sent a message to Jennifer with my unfamiliar fingers. How are you feeling? If there's anything I can help with, please don't hesitate to ask. Okay, sent. It took me over 10 minutes just to send such a short message, making me acutely aware of my declining mental agility. However, I received a reply from Jennifer within a minute. Oh, that was quick. Young people really are different. The message said that she was taking over the work of an employee who had retired, which made her incredibly busy. And although Jennifer wasn't originally good at housework, she had been managing with James's help. However, with James away for a week, she wrote that she was feeling anxious. She wanted to ask if I could help with the laundry and dishes. When I first heard from James that Jennifer wasn't feeling well, I honestly thought she might be pregnant, and I was quite excited. But learning that wasn't the case left me a bit disappointed. Still, my daughter-in-law was clearly struggling. I spent another 10 minutes typing a response to let her know to ask if there was anything else I could do. Looking back, this might have been the start of it all. After this, Jennifer began to find reasons to ask me to do household chores, and even started requesting specific dishes for dinner. The frequency of these requests increased over time, and when James was away on business trips, she would stay at our house, acting almost like a guest, and never once offered to pay for the groceries for the meals she requested. Eventually, my husband and I started to feel that her lack of restraint was too much. Still, we continued to comply with Jennifer's requests, perhaps because she was a young bride and always excessively grateful for the help with housework and meals, making it hard for us to refuse her. Doing household chores and cooking can be tough when you're tired from work. And besides, she always takes photos of the food with her smartphone, which makes me think my presentation has improved. I guess I have Jennifer to thank for that. This is how I justified it to myself. Although Jennifer wasn't pregnant, we had our granddaughter Melissa, born to our daughter Emily and her husband. Being our first grandchild, Melissa was exceptionally kind and adorable. Of course, my husband was always so doting that Melissa is the apple of his eye.
No, Grandpa, Melissa is already in elementary school. You can't do that, or you'll hurt your eyes. But I love you, Grandpa and Grandma.
Melissa would say, endearingly indulging her grandpa's jokes. Perhaps sensing our feelings, Emily made a point of bringing Melissa to our house almost every weekend when they had no plans. My husband and I always looked forward to seeing Melissa. However, about 8 months ago, their weekend visits started to decrease significantly. At first, I thought it was just a matter of timing, but the positive responses never came. Is this separation from parents? No, because she's a grandchild. Maybe it's separation from grandparents. Maybe Melissa is just at a challenging age now. I felt an indescribable loneliness, but I accepted it as something inevitable. After all, it's not like we can't meet. We're not disliked, so that's fine. Truth be told, Melissa's behavior when she visited our home hadn't changed at all. In fact, she had become even more affectionate and proactive in helping with household chores. So, the decrease in her visits probably meant she was just going through a difficult age. Thus, our only joys became the once-a-month visits and phone calls with her. Over the phone, Melissa's voice was always cheerful, and she happily shared stories from school. But at the end of each call, when I'd say she could visit any time, she would always hedge her words. Each time, I felt a deeper sadness and loneliness than I had attributed to her just being at a difficult age. In June, a day was set for Melissa to visit our home. I took this opportunity to share with my daughter Emily a plan my husband and I had discussed. We were thinking of having Melissa's graduation party here. What do you think?
Wow, thank you. Melissa would be thrilled.
That's great. Shall we discuss the menu for the day? Should we go with the usual menu? And can we invite James and Jennifer, too?
James as well. Well, yes, celebrating together would make Melissa happier. Please go ahead, and the usual menu will be fine.
The party details were smoothly arranged, leaving only the confirmation of James and Jennifer's attendance. 2 days later, while having dinner with James and his wife at our house, I mentioned the graduation party to them.
Melissa has reached that age already, huh? But I'll be on the final day of a business trip, so I can't make it. How about Jennifer?
I'll definitely be there. Oh, can I also cook something? I want to show off my cooking skills for my cute niece.
That's wonderful. Melissa will surely be delighted. Thank you, Jennifer. At that time, Jennifer had been eating dinner at our house almost daily. I was deeply touched when she offered to cook for Melissa's sake, and I happily agreed to her proposal. Little did I know that it would lead to such an incident. I couldn't have imagined it at that time. So, the day of the party arrived. Melissa's favorite pizza and, at Jennifer's request, pasta and chicken were on the table. With more people to feed than usual, Emily and I were swamped with preparations and cooking. Seeing us busy, Melissa came over to the kitchen and offered her help.
Can I help with something?
However, I declined Melissa's offer to help, saying that she was the guest of honor today. Melissa returned to her seat with a shy smile, but her face seemed slightly uneasy. At that moment, I was too preoccupied to delve into the reason for her expression. Melissa shouldn't have to worry about anything more today. I need to finish up quickly. I was focused solely on getting the preparations done as quickly as possible. Back in the living room, Melissa seemed restless and uneasy. My husband, Steve, thought that maybe calling it a party had made her nervous. In the midst of the hectic atmosphere, Jennifer alone was relaxing on the sofa, looking at her smartphone. But when Melissa returned from the kitchen and took her seat, Jennifer said to her,
Melissa, congratulations on your graduation. This is a celebration cake for me.
Despite Emily and I still preparing the meal, Jennifer placed the box in front of Melissa.
A celebration calls for a cake, right? I worked hard on it just for you, so please eat it all.
As she opened the box, she urged Melissa to eat it right away.
Well, but shouldn't we wait until everyone is together?
Melissa replied in a shaky voice, visibly unsettled. However, Jennifer insisted, handing her a fork somewhat forcefully.
The truth is, I'm not good at cooking, so I only made enough cake for you, Melissa. I'd be embarrassed if everyone saw it, so please eat it now. Please.
Jennifer pleaded with a smile.
Well, maybe just a little then.
Just as Melissa was about to take a bite with her fork.
Come on, you won't get the real taste from just the itch.
Jennifer said cheerfully, and then cut a piece from the middle of the cake, which was richer with cream.
The middle part is creamier and tastier. Here, try this.
As Jennifer pulled the plate closer to Melissa, my husband suddenly grabbed the plate with the cake and, without a word, threw it into the kitchen trash can.
What?
Jennifer was so surprised that she froze on the spot. I was cooking in the kitchen when I was shocked by my husband's strange behavior and involuntarily raised my voice. Honey, isn't that Jennifer's cooking? What are you doing? From the living room, I could barely hear the conversation and only knew that Jennifer was pushing her homemade cake on Melissa. I thought they were getting along well, but what is happening here? Amid my confusion, Melissa came to me with tears in her eyes. The cake was suddenly thrown away, and Melissa must be shocked too, poor thing. I was about to speak to her when she said,
Grandpa, thank you.
Holding back her tears, Melissa hugged my husband, and then started to cry softly in his arms. I was even more confused and could only silently watch them. Then, noticing my bewildered state, my husband muttered,
It's the nuts?
What did you say? Surprised by his unexpected words, I asked him to repeat. The idea seemed impossible to me, because I couldn't get rid of such a thought. but my husband repeated the same thing.
The cake had nuts in it.
At the word nuts, both I and Emily, who had been cooking with me, were shocked and turned pale. Could it be a mistake, because Melissa is...
No, there's no mistake. I checked the actual cake, and I clearly heard her say nuts.
Hearing my husband's words, I felt all the blood drain from my body, nearly fainting. Emily, on the other hand, rushed to Melissa and meticulously checked her face and palms.
Melissa, you didn't eat it, did you?
She asked desperately.
I didn't eat it. Grandpa threw it away.
Melissa said between sobs, reassuring Emily. Relieved, Emily exhaled deeply and gently embraced Melissa. The reason we were so frantic is that Melissa has a severe nut allergy. Melissa's nut allergy was discovered when she was just 9 months old. We were having a meal at our house that day. Melissa loved bread at the time, but we only had bread with nuts. After discussing it with Emily, we decided to let Melissa try a small bite as part of her weaning food. However, this decision would be something Emily and I regretted for a long time. Seconds after eating a bite of the nut-containing bread, Melissa's mouth area quickly turned red. Her breathing became rapid, as if she had a fever, and she became limp. Naturally, the meal was immediately stopped, and Emily and her husband rushed to the emergency department. That was when we first learned of Melissa's severe nut allergy. Even now, recalling that moment makes my hands shake with fear. Since then, we made sure that no food containing nuts was kept in our house. Of course, Jennifer should have been informed about Melissa's nut allergy through James. Despite this, the idea of her serving a cake topped with nuts was beyond my imagination. Especially when Emily, Melissa's mother, was not watching. Just the thought of it sends chills down my spine. Cold stares from everyone were instantly directed at Jennifer.
What have I done? I'm so sorry. It wasn't intentional. I didn't know about the allergy. I'm truly sorry.
Jennifer sobbed and apologized.
You didn't know. Didn't James tell you?
It seemed impossible that James would forget to mention Melissa's allergy. Because at that time James was experiencing the same fear with us. Just as everyone's suspicion towards Jennifer intensified. Could that be a delivery at the door? The tense atmosphere was pierced by the sound of the doorbell.
I'll get it.
My husband said, quickly heading towards the entrance. From the door, I could faintly hear the voices of 2 men arguing. Is there some trouble? I wondered, and in the next moment,
Melissa, are you okay?
James, with a look of panic, rushed into the kitchen.
Uncle James.
Everyone was surprised by James's sudden appearance, as he had said he couldn't attend to his business trip, but Jennifer reacted differently.
James, why? You said you weren't coming today.
I rushed to finish my work so I could make it to the party. But more importantly, is it true that Melissa's food had nuts in it? What exactly happened here?
James was clearly bewildered by the unusual situation at the party. To calm him down, my husband quietly explained what had happened.
So, It seems Jennifer didn't know about Melissa's nut allergy and offered her the cake. And kind-hearted Melissa couldn't refuse and was about to take a bite, so I hastily threw the cake away.
You're saying Jennifer didn't know? Did she really say that?
Yes, she said she hadn't heard anything from you.
That's impossible. I made a point of noting it in our shared memo, emphasizing that she has a nut allergy. Jennifer couldn't have been unaware.
James then showed us the shared memo on his smartphone, which indeed mentioned the nut allergy. The cold stares of everyone turned back to Jennifer.
I always top my cakes with nuts out of habit. I might not have paid proper attention to the memo. I was so focused on cooking. It wasn't intentional.
Jennifer started to make tearful, strained excuses, sounding almost like a child. No one seemed convinced by her explanation. However, my husband, James, and I didn't blame her further. Although it wasn't a mistake that could be easily forgiven, fortunately, Melissa hadn't eaten the nuts. We felt it was enough if Jennifer would be more careful in the future. However, only Emily didn't think so.
I can tell everything now, right?
Emily said, and Melissa nodded firmly, albeit with a hint of confusion. The exchange left us puzzled. What's going to happen this time? An incomprehensible uneasiness was weighing on the air.
Jennifer, it's not just about the allergy, is it? You've been doing terrible things to Melissa behind our backs, haven't you?
What are you talking about?
You've answered Melissa's calls multiple times when you were here, haven't you? And each time you told her not to come here, or you threw away the letter she sent, right?
Stop it. That's absurd. I apologize for the nut incident, but don't make me out to be the villain. Steve, Karen, I didn't do any of that. It's the truth.
Jennifer retorted, her demeanor becoming defensive. Then she began to cry and yell at Emily, saying that she was jealous of Melissa because she was more adored than herself. But Emily remained calm. Her composure soon explained by her next action.
It's useless to flatter now. I have recorded your conversations with Melissa.
Emily played an audio clip from her smartphone. Melissa's distressed voice came through amidst faint static.
Can you put Grandpa or Grandma on the phone?
Her voice was fearful, on the verge of tears. Then Jennifer's voice, authoritative and smug, filled the room.
I've told you many times, stop calling. Like I said before, they really don't want to look after you, you know? Do you understand? So, stop calling and coming over here, all right?
The recording ended with a harsh click, leaving everyone in stunned silence. Melissa, perhaps recalling the incident, pressed her face into Emily's back, her shoulders trembling slightly. Emily embraced her tightly.
I kept quiet because Melissa didn't want to upset her grandma and grandpa, but I can't stay silent after all this.
Her glare at Jennifer was piercing as she spoke firmly. Jennifer, in contrast, was trembling, unable to form words, completely overwhelmed by the situation. In the silent tension of the room, the ticking of the clock was the only sound, distinctly audible. The long silence was finally broken by James.
First off, I'll talk with Jennifer alone. Sis, I'll definitely call you tonight, so can you leave this with me for now?
James, okay, call me, no excuses.
Yay, Melissa, sorry for the tough time, Dad and Mom. I'll contact you later. Jennifer, we're leaving.
Well, okay.
Jennifer seemed somewhat relieved at that moment. She must have thought that James had helped her. I had assumed James was protecting Jennifer. But that turned out to be a misunderstanding. Because shortly after, James divorced Jennifer. My husband and I heard the reasons for the divorce directly from James. And we were astounded by the childish and selfish nature of the revelations.
I thought Mom wanted Jennifer to come over for meals every day, and I was under the impression that Mom insisted on doing the apartment's chores and cleaning because you wanted to.
What? That's not true at all. It was Jennifer who asked for those things. I was shocked by James's statement, because none of it was true. However, the issue wasn't just that Jennifer was lying. Jennifer's true aim was. It was about satisfying the need for approval.
Jennifer always takes pictures, right?
Yes, now that you mention it, but what about it?
She's not just taking photos. She posts them on social media, bragging to a lot of people, showing off how fulfilling her life is. Here's her social media profile.
On Jennifer's social media, there were numerous posts of cute nails, brand bags, and stylish cafes. I noticed some familiar photos among them. Wait, this picture. It was a post of a dinner, claiming it was a menu she learned from her mother-in-law. However, I never taught her that recipe. In fact, Jennifer would only tell me, "Please make this next time."
Being envied by others is what matters most to Jennifer. Eventually, it led to her needing to feel superior all the time.
James explained it to me.
Jennifer became so obsessed with getting attention on social media that she pushed the annoying chores and cooking onto Mom. She wanted to appear as the perfect wife, so she made those false boasts.
James also explained her desire for approval. Still, it was a little difficult for me to understand at the age of 60. So, Jennifer did such awful things just to show off a loved and fulfilled personal life.
Yeah, something like that. It would have been better if she was just satisfied with showing off in photos. Jennifer increasingly wanted to be the sole focus of Dad and Mom's attention, but for that, Melissa was in the way.
In the way.
When Melissa comes over, there's no overnight stay or dinner for Jennifer. Even though they do anything if she asks, that's not the case when Melissa visits. Jennifer hated that.
My husband and I were appalled by James's story. It was hard to believe that for the sake of being the center of attention, she became jealous of a 12-year-old child, almost causing a serious incident.
Allergies are the same as likes and dislikes of food, aren't they? It's not just selfishness. Even your sister made such a fuss about it. Isn't that strange?
Jennifer did not attempt to understand the severity of allergies or how dangerous her actions were. Seeing Jennifer's attitude, James said his feelings for her cooled rapidly, and he disclosed everything to Emily. After hearing about it, Emily decided to report it to the police after consulting with her husband. The charge was assault. Additionally, the act of discarding the letters could be considered as obstruction of correspondence. It was also mentioned that parts of the recorded phone conversations beyond what was heard that day, could potentially constitute threats, leading to charges of intimidation. Thus, Jennifer faced police questioning initiated by Emily and her husband's consultation, concurrently with James's divorce proposition. Initially, Jennifer refused to accept the divorce and the police inquiry. However, as time passed, rumors that she had caused the police incident began to spread at her workplace. Having always boasted about her fulfilling life, the spread of these rumors seemed to hit her hardest. After stubbornly rejecting the divorce, she quickly accepted it and became unreachable immediately after completing the police interrogation. As expected, she was also fired from her job due to unexplained absences. This experience made me realize that Jennifer I knew was just a facade. Though we might never meet again, I wished, at least as an adult, to hear her apologize to Melissa. I mentioned this quietly to my husband.
People like her don't change easily. I'm happier with the thought of her never appearing before Melissa again than any apology she could offer.
He might be right. Since that day, Melissa's visits to our home decreased again. But for entirely different reasons. Now in middle school, Melissa is busy with studies and club activities, only finding time during school holidays. Yet, she still keeps in touch through calls and letters, mitigating any feelings of loneliness. If my husband hadn't thrown away the cake on the day of the graduation party, what would have happened by now? I am sometimes seized by a chilling sensation as I contemplate this. He noticed something was off with Melissa and acted out of a desperate need to protect her. Thanks to his actions, Melissa can still go to school with a smile today. I'd like to learn from my husband and be able to protect Melissa's smile and future. I'm secretly thinking so.
I came today with a gift for your baby's birth. I asked around and bought some good formula milk, so please make sure to give it to your child.
My mother-in-law, Elizabeth, said that while handing me a can of formula milk right after I had given birth. She always believed, without any basis, that I married her son Rick for his money and had constantly harassed me. It felt strange and suspicious to see her presenting a gift with a smile.
I hope they grow up healthy.
She said that, leaving without any of her usual snide remarks. Her departure felt eerie. Puzzled, I showed the formula milk to my mother who had come to visit. She turned pale and urgently said,
"Don't open it. Throw it away right now."
Then she rushed to the police station with the milk.
"Please examine this powder. I think it's not formula milk."
I was shocked and bewildered by what my mother reported to the police. I'm Sarah, a daycare worker. I love spending time with the adorable children, even though it's always busy due to constant staff shortages. That's when I met Rick. He's a police officer. He visited the daycare where I work to teach the kids about road safety. Every year, it seems that the police collaborate with daycare centers to teach preschoolers about traffic rules before they start elementary school, and it's usually the responsibility of new officers. Rick, young and full of justice, was popular among the daycare staff, and I found him wonderful too. Our relationship started when he gave me his contact information, and I responded. We fell in love, started dating, and got married within a year. Rick, diligent at work and helpful at home, made our married life blissful. However, I faced one major problem: my relationship with Elizabeth. Elizabeth. She seemed convinced I married Rick, a public servant, for his status, and had a low opinion of me. I realized this during my second visit to their home. We were discussing wedding plans at their place. I went to help Elizabeth in the kitchen, where she shockingly said,
"Even someone as uneducated as you can have an easy life by flattering a public servant."
"Excuse me, what do you mean?"
"Well, being a daycare worker isn't exactly a smart person's job, is it? The pay isn't great, and you must have been worried about your future. But marrying a police officer like Rick means you're set for life."
I was stunned by her words. I tried to explain that I didn't marry Rick for his money. I married him for who he is. But Elizabeth never listened.
"You might deceive Rick, but you can't fool me."
She said that, leaving me frozen in shock. From then on, every time I visited their home, she would make snide remarks. Since our houses were close, sometimes we'd see each other as often as once a week. It was always painful, but I endured it because Rick had a good relationship with her. About 6 months into our marriage, I discovered I was pregnant. Rick was overjoyed, and so was I. There were other things that made me happy about being pregnant. It was the fact that I didn't have to see Elizabeth for a while. I asked my mother to help with household chores. Elizabeth's offer to help would have made me uncomfortable. Rick understood and made sure Elizabeth didn't visit. Since our houses are close, I used to be called to my in-laws' house frequently, so not having to see Elizabeth was a relief. However, the distance from my mother-in-law was only until I entered the stable phase of my pregnancy. She called me after that, inviting me to collect vegetables from the family garden. As Rick couldn't come to do work commitments, I had to go alone. When I went to my in-laws' house, my father-in-law, Jason, welcomed me warmly and filled a bag with fresh vegetables for me.
"They are pesticide-free, so they should be good for you and the baby. Eat plenty of them,"
he said kindly, making me feel grateful and appreciated. But as I was about to leave, something terrifying happened. Just as I stepped down the front stairs, I suddenly felt a push on my back. Desperately protecting my belly, I twisted and fell, sliding down the stairs shoulder first. It was only about 4 steps, but they were tiled, and I scraped my shoulder and elbow. Enduring the intense pain, I looked up to see Elizabeth, smirking down at me.
"What a pity."
She said that nonchalantly after seeing that I hadn't hit my stomach, and then she went back inside. I had only dealt with her snide remarks before, but now I feared for my life. I discreetly confided in my mother, who was visiting. She listened intently and asked me to tell her immediately if anything else happened. After that, I made sure to visit my in-laws only when Rick was with me, and spent most of my time at home with my mom. This helped me avoid further harassment from Elizabeth. Thankfully, I gave birth to a healthy son, Kevin. Holding my little boy, all the pain and troubles seemed to vanish. After returning home, my mom helped take care of the baby, replacing Rick, who was busy with work. I was slowly getting the hang of this new parenting role. Then, unexpectedly, Elizabeth showed up one day.
"I came to give a present for the baby's birth. I asked around and bought some good formula milk. Please make sure to give it to your child."
"Thank you." She was constantly smiling. However, that actually made me feel uneasy, as it was a stark contrast to her usual glaring. "I hope he grows up healthy," she said before leaving. As I was pondering over her uncharacteristic behavior, my mom approached, holding Kevin.
What did she want?
She brought some formula milk she heard was good from the neighbors. I replied my mom, pulling out the formula can from the plastic bag. Instantly, my mom backed away with a shocked expression.
Don't bring that near me.
What's wrong?
Sarah, you mustn't open that can.
She warned, then quickly put Kevin in his crib and snatched the bag from me.
We need to go to the police right now and tell Rick.
Why? Surprised, I followed her, carrying Kevin. We rushed to the police station where Rick worked.
Rick, this formula is dangerous. Please check it immediately.
Lisa, what's wrong?
Sarah received it. I think it's lime.
Lime? I gasped, staring into the bag. Rick's face turned serious as he took the can. He then discussed it with his supervisor and they agreed to analyze its contents. A few days later, we learned the shocking truth. The can didn't contain formula milk. It was agricultural lime used in farming. Rick and my mom looked somber back at our house.
This lime was once used for marking lines in schools, but it was discontinued after causing blindness in some cases.
Blindness, you mean?
Just opening the can could have been dangerous for both you and the baby.
I shivered, imagining the worst. If I hadn't known and had opened it, Kevin might have been in grave danger. Anger boiled inside me against Elizabeth, who had stooped to harming even Kevin. I couldn't let her actions slide any longer. I decided to expose her misdeeds and seek justice. A few days after receiving the formula milk, Jason called to inform me that the police had shown up at their house. To explain the chaos unfolding to the confused Jason, I headed to my in-laws' house with my mother, holding Kevin. Upon arrival, we saw Elizabeth being restrained by the police, struggling and yelling.
I haven't done anything. Don't make up stories. I won't go with the police. Let me go.
Sarah, they're saying something about Elizabeth harming you. They're saying they're taking her to the police station.
Jason said that, looking bewildered as he alternated his gaze between his wife's commotion and us. Jason, what the police are saying is true. We were almost killed by her.
What? What do you mean?
I haven't done anything. Don't believe what that woman says.
Elizabeth screamed. However, Jason looked at her sternly.
If the police are involved, there must be a reason. Sarah, can you tell me what happened?
I explained everything to Jason, who had regained some composure. I think she intentionally put lime in the milk. You're into gardening, right? You must have bought lime in bulk.
Indeed. I bought lime for the garden. I was planning to spread it soon, but noticed it was less than I remembered. Could she have lied that it was formula milk and given it to Sarah?
Elizabeth turned pale under Jason's sharp gaze.
No, I wouldn't do such a thing.
Then you won't mind if the police check for fingerprints on the can, right? If they find someone else's fingerprints, that person is likely the culprit.
What do you mean?
She started sweating and looked away, nervous. You better confess now. If you keep making a fuss, it might turn into obstruction of justice. I said that firmly as she glared at me.
Yes, I put the lime in. It was just a little prank.
A little prank. You gave something that can cause blindness in adults, lying it was formula milk. That's way over the line.
You should have realized immediately it wasn't formula milk. I never thought you'd actually feed it to him. If you can't tell the difference, maybe you're unfit to be a mother.
She laughed mockingly. I was furious. Enough. It's one thing to harass me. But what if something happened to Kevin? If you disliked me that much, you should have opposed the marriage from the start.
I did oppose it. A daycare worker with no education or income. Rick's just being used, but Rick insisted on marrying you. He wouldn't listen.
I had to protect Rick because he's being deceived, she shouted, spitting with rage. She had been harassing me to break up our marriage, but it wasn't working. She seemed to panic, thinking that once we had a child, we definitely wouldn't divorce. So, she thought threatening harm to Kevin might make me initiate a divorce. But that doesn't give you the right to do anything you want. This is a serious crime.
A crime? Don't be so dramatic. It was just a prank.
It's more than just a prank.
Rick's voice came from behind. He had come home after hearing about the commotion. As soon as she saw Rick, Elizabeth reached out to him desperately.
Rick, help me, please. This woman is trying to get me arrested. It's all a misunderstanding. Convince the police. You know them, right?
I'm sorry, but it wasn't Sarah who pressed charges. It was me.
Why would you do that?
I feared for the lives of Sarah and our child.
Rick said that as he looked at her sadly.
When you gave Sarah the lime, she and her mother came to the police station where I was. I've heard all about the harassment.
That was just being a bit strict.
No more lies. I've heard about the lime. If Sarah had opened it while holding Kevin, the dust could have caused serious harm.
I honestly didn't know it was that dangerous. I thought it was harmless since it's used in gardens.
Not knowing isn't an excuse. There was no harm done, but you had malicious intent. That could be attempted murder.
Attempted murder.
She gasped, covering her mouth.
You've done enough. Reflect on your actions and pay for them.
Wait, I did it for you. Please, let's pretend this never happened. We're family. Overlook this much.
She clung to Rick with tears in her eyes. But he shook his head slowly.
If I forgive you now, you won't learn. When I told you about marrying Sarah, you judged her without even meeting her and wouldn't listen.
To make her reconsider her actions, Rick quietly explained why he had to press charges. But Elizabeth didn't seem convinced, apologizing while crying and clinging to Rick's feet.
Why are you so cold? Do you know how hard I've worked to raise you? Are you really taking the side of a woman you've only known for a few years over your own mother? That's too much.
I am grateful to you, Mom. You did a lot for me, like household chores and driving me to extracurricular activities. But the way you've treated Sarah is wrong. I won't withdraw the charges.
No, please, I've reflected on my actions. I won't harass Sarah anymore. I'll do anything, even help with the housework. Just forgive me.
Elizabeth began to cry uncontrollably. Still, Rick just watched her silently, without nodding. Then, realizing her appeals to Rick were futile, she turned to her husband.
Dad, please help me. I'm not guilty. Tell the police I'm innocent.
Jason quietly shook his head.
I've been silent until now, but what you did can't be forgiven. You need to pay for your crimes.
Why are you taking her side too? If I get arrested, I can't live here anymore. Didn't we say we'd enjoy our retirement here, gardening? Are you okay with losing that dream?
The neighbors, having heard the commotion, were watching from afar. If she were taken away now, rumors would surely spread. It could even become impossible for her to live there. But Jason remained unyielding.
It's okay if I can't garden anymore. If it means Sarah and Rick won't suffer, that's fine.
Enraged, Elizabeth shouted,
You're prioritizing her over your own wife. You prefer a younger woman. You no good traitor.
Exasperated by her foul language, Jason sighed.
I never thought you were this terrible. I can't stay with you anymore. We're getting divorced. Get arrested for all I care.
Are you serious? You're joking, right? We were fine until yesterday. Why are you suddenly talking about divorce?
Jason held his head.
Suddenly, watching you harass Sarah without remorse and insult others when things don't go your way cooled my love instantly.
But everyone's on Sarah's side. No one listens to me.
We are listening, and we're saying you're wrong. What you did is bad enough for arrest. How can you not understand that?
Shocked, she fell silent at his stern tone.
I don't want to spend my life with someone who lacks common sense.
Jason said that, causing Elizabeth to tremble violently.
Wait, if you leave me, what am I supposed to do? I have no income. My pension is not much. I won't be able to live. Please, just not divorce.
She stretched out her hands, pleading as if casting a spell to stop the divorce. However, Jason coldly brushed her hands away. Her face was then a mess with tears and smeared makeup. She then turned towards me.
Sarah, I'm sorry. It was my fault. I apologize. So please forgive me. If you forgive me, then Rick and Dad will too. Please forgive me.
That's not really an apology to me, is it? You're just apologizing to get forgiveness from Rick and your husband, right?
No, that's not true. I really do feel sorry. I'll do anything if it means getting forgiveness. You know, child-rearing is hard, right? I can help you with that. It will make things easier for you.
She said this with a forced smile. It made me feel nauseous. How could I trust someone who endangered Kevin's life with such dangerous harassment to help with child-rearing? I sighed, exasperated at her complete lack of understanding. I'm sorry, but I can no longer trust you. Therefore, I want nothing more to do with you.
Don't say that. Aren't we family?
Family? You never thought of me as family, did you? You've always been trying to divorce me and kick me out of the house.
Well, that's...
I might have tolerated the harassment against me, but I can't forgive someone who harasses Kevin. I can't consider you family anymore, and no matter how much you apologize, I can't forgive you. Rick then signaled the police. They grabbed Elizabeth's arm to take her to the patrol car.
No, stop. Don't touch me. Please, forgive me.
As she screamed, the police led her away. She was later arrested for attempted murder. We didn't suffer any health damage, but due to the severity of her actions and her malice, she faced serious punishment. Jason divorced her, and Rick also decided to cut ties with her. Now, she is in prison, and we have moved and cut off all means of communication to ensure she cannot contact us after her release. She had a history of harassment and wasn't well regarded in the neighborhood. Her arrest spread her bad reputation, and she lost any supporters she might have had. Even after her release, she likely live a lonely life without friends or relatives to rely on. Being a housewife, she has no income. And with her age and criminal record, finding work will be difficult. It's sad to think about her situation, but for Kevin's safety, it was necessary. Kevin is now crawling and growing well. Watching him grow, I'm relieved we cut ties with Elizabeth. I'm committed to ensuring Kevin's health and safety going forward.
Can you give your living space to me? It's too cramped with 3 kids.
Suddenly, with her kids in tow, Amy showed up at the 2-family home where my spouse and I were living with my in-laws. At Amy's outrageous request, both my husband Sean and I were stunned. Facing our speechlessness, the in-laws also sided with Amy.
The place you guys are living in, isn't it too big for just the 2 of you? Giving it up to this girl with 3 growing kids is just common decency, isn't it?
You 2 would be fine in a storage room.
At their unreasonable demands, I lost my patience. I couldn't take it anymore. I decided they deserved divine punishment for their selfish behavior. With a poker face, I responded, "All right, as you wish, my husband Sean and I will leave." With that, I took Sean's hand and we moved from the 2-family house to a modest apartment. A few days after moving, I received a call from Amy on my smartphone and instinctively answered. What hit my ears was Amy's voice, sounding desperate and angry.
What's the meaning of this? I got a notice from the real estate agent to vacate. You know something about this. What did you do?
The revenge I took on them, who had taken over our home, was, my name is Heather. I am a home-based worker in my 30s, living with my husband, Sean. The way I met my husband was through a blind date. Having worked from home for a long time before marriage, I had no chance to meet men, which bothered my parents enough to arrange a blind date for me without my knowledge. Initially, I thought it was unnecessary and was confused, but when I actually went to the blind date, the person I met was surprisingly pleasant. Finding common ground, we hit it off and eventually started dating, leading to marriage. The man I married, Sean, is kind and dependable, though a bit timid, possessing qualities I often lack, as I'm considered strong-willed but inflexible. Our married life with him was going smoothly. Sean's parents lived in the town next to ours. Though we didn't live with the in-laws, we maintained a fairly good relationship, occasionally staying in touch and being invited to their home. A few years into our marriage, Katie started suggesting we live together.
We're getting on in years, and thinking about the future makes us anxious. Hey, if you don't mind, why don't we live together?
Katie mentioned it casually, not wanting to force us, but then the in-laws began to bring up the idea of living together now and then. I could understand the in-laws' concerns about feeling insecure living just the 2 of them at their age, and I thought living with them, with whom we had a good relationship, might be nice. I was positive about it, but Sean seemed to have some reservations. Are you opposed to living with Katie and the others?
Well, I think it'll be okay.
His indecisive attitude was usual, so I didn't think much of it. Little did I know that such thoughts would lead to an unforeseen situation. One day, while leading a peaceful life, tragedy struck me suddenly. My parents were killed in a car accident. The suddenness of it left me in shock. Being an only child with no close cousins or relatives to rely on, I had to arrange the funeral without time to grieve. Since I already had no grandparents, I was to inherit all of my parents' estate. I had acquired a considerable amount of assets and my parents' land and house, but the grief of losing my parents and the business of the procedures made it impossible for me to be honestly happy. During this tough time, my kind husband, Sean, was always there supporting me. And the in-laws, too, showed empathy towards me, unable to express my feelings freely.
Heather, it's okay to cry when you're sad. Losing your biological parents so suddenly, it's natural to feel sorrow. I understand there's a lot you need to do, but you must first accept your feelings.
Katie told me, making me realize I hadn't cried since my parents passed away. Finally, I was able to cry my heart out. Even after the funeral and inheritance issues were settled, the in-laws seemed more concerned about me, visiting our home more often and bringing gifts.
If it bothers you, feel free to say no.
Katie laughs at this, but I felt very comforted by the presence of my parents-in-law, who were so kind and concerned about me. I gradually came to think of my parents-in-law as my real parents, who were there for me and worried about me. Then one day, while having tea and chatting at our home, Katie brought up the subject of living together again after a long time.
Hey, about the living together thing we talked about before. Even though Sean is with you, you must feel lonely losing your parents. Heather, would you seriously consider living with us?
We really want to live with you and Sean. Of course, we can wait until you feel ready, but could you start thinking seriously about it soon?
With earnest expressions, the in-laws made the proposal again, warming my heart. After they left, I discussed it with Sean, who was back from work. Katie and her husband proposed living together again. We have to deal with my parents' house, and I was thinking maybe it's a good opportunity to build a new home for us to live together. What do you think, Sean?
Well, yeah, I think it'll be okay. Let's do it.
Sean seemed to be worried about something, but he ultimately agreed with my wish. We then conveyed our desire to live with the in-laws and started preparing for it. My inherited family home was old, so we decided to demolish it and build a new two-family home on the land to live with the in-laws. The demolition and construction were costly, but thankfully, my parents' inheritance covered the expenses, and a few months later, a new duplex house under my name was completed. My parents-in-law liked the completed new house, and with a sense of relief, I started living with them with a renewed spirit. Initially, living with the parents was harmonious. However, I gradually began to feel a coldness in their attitude towards us.
Hey, Heather, don't vacuum at such hours. It's too noisy.
You're home all day. You can clean any time. You need to be more considerate of us in your daily life.
At first, there were many comments about lifestyle differences and noise, but gradually, criticisms and nagging about household chores increased.
It's nice you invited us for dinner, but this meal is so plain, right? Make something more luxurious.
Isn't your hospitality lacking? Really, what kind of upbringing did your parents give you?
Their cold words pierced my heart. But I thought it was due to my immaturity that they pointed things out. They must be scolding me for my own good, I believed. So I accepted their harsh and thorny words and endured. Even so, The sudden change from their previously kind and warm attitude gradually depressed me. When I vented to Sean, it seemed he had some realization.
I thought as much. No, Heather, it's not your fault. You're managing both work and home perfectly and are the ideal wife for me, so don't worry about what my mom says.
Sean's smile and words slightly healed my heart, hurt by the in-laws' attitude. Still, it seemed hard for Sean to speak up or oppose the in-laws, and the fundamental issue remained unresolved. Gradually, the in-laws' cold treatment escalated beyond words and behavior. They stopped contributing to the shared expenses for utilities and living costs that they had previously split with us.
You and Sean are working, so you have money, right? Asking us, who live on our pensions, to pay is not nice, don't you think? When did you become such ungrateful children?
With no comeback to such accusations, we had no choice but to cover the in-laws' share of the living and utility expenses. Then one day, something shocking happened.
My husband was cheating on me, so I divorced him. That's why you gotta let us live here too.
Amy said this and came barging into our home with her 3 still young children in tow. Sean and I were perplexed, but the in-laws welcomed Amy and her children.
This is your home too. Why would we say no? We're more than happy to live with our grandkids.
What a terrible has-been to cheat like that. You must be exhausted. Come in and rest first.
Yay, thanks. We'll make ourselves at home.
Without even trying to get our consent, who were supposed to be co-living, the in-laws joyfully welcomed Amy and her children. It would have been one thing if it was just a temporary visit, but to move in without our consent. I was hardly convinced and cautiously approached Katie. Well, Katie, suddenly living with Amy and all, it's a bit. Hearing this, Katie glared at me with a cold voice, thinking I was against living with Amy.
What about, you want her to go out on the street because her husband left her, even though the children are still young? How can you say such a cold thing? Are you still a human being?
Katie snapped at me. I hurriedly tried to correct the misunderstanding, but Katie wouldn't listen. No, that's not what I meant. I just wish we had been consulted about living together, that's all.
What's the difference? You're just against living with them. After all, they're going to live in our part of the house, so your consent isn't needed. Mind your own business.
With that, Katie slammed the door leading to the in-laws' living space. Left alone, I was dumbfounded by Amy and the in-laws' unreasonable actions and arguments. Living together with Amy and her children, which started by default, was terrible, to put it mildly. Amy's children would barge into our living space, running around and breaking things. Despite repeatedly telling them not to enter our room and asking Amy to scold them, I was only rebuffed.
What? Don't meddle in my family's business. And don't you dare scold my kids.
It's not that I was scolding them. I just wish they'd learn not to carelessly move between our living spaces or make noise in someone else's home. At least some basic rules.
That's being bossy. You let me live in your mother's house. Who do you think you are?
Amy yelled with a flushed face and then slammed the door to the in-laws' living area. Apparently, Amy was under the mistaken belief that the house belonged to the in-laws, but I couldn't correct her. In the end, Amy's children's behavior didn't improve. They would intrude into my office and disrupt my work, making both my personal and professional life increasingly stressful. While observing the children, I noticed something. At first glance, the children looked neat, but upon closer inspection, they had numerous cavities and their nails were bitten and ragged, showing neglect in their care, including their lack of manners. It seemed Amy wasn't really looking after the kids properly. The in-laws, perhaps too indulgent with their grandchildren, didn't seem to pay much attention either. Ever since Amy and her kids came, our lives have been a mess. I'm reaching my limit. Exhausted by the daily chaos, Sean finally confided in me his long-held concerns. It appeared the in-laws had always favored Amy, leaving Sean feeling neglected. However, the in-laws maintained a good facade outside, never letting anyone perceive the family discord or their true nature, and were always regarded as a close-knit family of 4. Sean said that he moved out and started living alone when he got a job, and since then, the in-laws' attitude softened, showing more kindness and consideration. This behavior continued even after I married Sean, and they were also kind to me, so I thought they had changed for the better. But their behavior since we started living together was the same as Sean's childhood experiences. While the in-laws doted on Amy, they ignored Sean, even looking down on him and treating him coldly. This attitude became more evident after they accepted Amy moving in, convincing Sean that the in-laws hadn't changed at all.
It seems that my parents' true nature shows depending on whether we live together or not. They are kind and perfect to everyone outside, as long as we don't live with them. But their real attitudes are what we've seen since living together. I'm sorry for not realizing this sooner and making you suffer, Heather.
He said with teary-eyed and apologized. I was shocked by Sean's revelation. I couldn't believe that the kind in-laws I knew before we lived together were just a facade, and they had always looked down on us. Though I had started to suspect something was off with the recent attitudes of the in-laws and Amy, facing the reality was still painful. However, silent as he was about it, Sean was a victim too. I couldn't bring myself to be angry with him. Thank you for telling me. Sean, it's not your fault, so don't apologize. Knowing the true nature of the in-laws, I felt the inferiority I had towards them disappear. Secretly, I began making preparations to escape from the in-laws and Amy whenever necessary. A few weeks later, on a day off while Sean and I were relaxing in the living room, Amy made an outrageous suggestion.
It's too cramped here for the kids to play freely, since this is where Mom and Dad live. So, give us your living space.
Wait, are you saying we should leave our own home? Stunned by Amy's absurd claim, both Sean and I were speechless. Amy scoffed at us.
Oh, look at you figuring it out. Yes, I'm telling you to get out.
As I was lost for words, Katie came from behind Amy.
The place you two are living in is too spacious for just the two of you, right? It's only natural to hand it over to this girl with 3 growing kids.
Katie said with a smirk, prompting me to retort. That's outrageous. This is our home too. Where do you expect us to live?
Not my problem. Live in a storage room or something. That should be enough for the two of you.
Katie said dismissively, with Amy nodding in agreement. I felt my patience finally snap. I couldn't stand it anymore. They deserved to face consequences for their selfish actions. With that resolve in my heart, I responded expressionlessly. All right, my husband and I will leave this place. but it's difficult to move out immediately, so please wait a week. We'll leave as you wish in 1 week." With that, I took my husband's hand and turned our backs on Amy and her children, who were squealing with joy. Alone with my husband, Sean looked down with a frustrated expression.
Heather, I'm sorry. I couldn't say anything.
To my disheartened husband, I revealed a plan. "It's okay, I've got it all figured out. Actually," Sean was surprised by my suggestion but agreed. We then proceeded with the moving preparations, and a week later arrived.
As you wish. We are leaving this house. But in exchange, we will sever our family ties with you and my sister today,"
Sean declared, which the in-laws seemed to accept without any concern.
Yes, go ahead. You're nothing but a failure of a son anyway.
I'm so relieved the nuisances are gone. Now, this house is just for us.
With cold eyes, Sean and I left the duplex we had lived in. We moved into a rented apartment as a temporary measure and started living peacefully, just the two of us, in a quiet space. A few days after the move, while I was working from home and decided to take a break, I noticed a flood of missed calls from the in-laws and Amy on my personal smartphone. As I was surprised by this, another call from Amy came in. I answered instinctively, and Amy's shouting voice pierced my ears.
What the heck? The real estate agent contacted us to vacate. You know something about this. What did you do?
In fact, after Sean revealed the in-laws' true nature, I had been preparing to sell the house we lived in with them. I secretly requested estimates from several real estate agents, selected one, and initiated the sale process right after they declared they were kicking us out. The assessed value of the house itself was beaten down by the fact that it was a duplex, although it was newly built, but the land was a single lot, so they were able to get a good price there. Thus, I managed to sell the land and the new duplex I inherited from my parents, recovering a significant amount of money.
That's ridiculous. That house belongs to my parents. You can't just sell it.
Amy seemed to be under the mistaken belief that the house was in the in-laws' name, so I corrected her. No, I built the house under my name, so it was legally mine. I was just leasing part of the living space to Katie and her husband. Well, now it's sold, so it's someone else's house.
What did you say?
It seemed the call was on speaker, as I could hear not only Amy's but also Katie's shocked voice.
What? The house wasn't in Sean's name. We thought it was his, so naturally, it would be ours as his parents.
You deceived us, you liar.
At the moment you said you were leaving, normally the property rights should have been transferred to us. What ungrateful cowards.
The in-laws and Amy yelled and hurled insults. I dismissed them with, "It's not fair to say that we cheated you. You are the ones who misunderstood me. I just got rid of my property, so please leave as soon as possible." With that, I hung up, ignoring Amy's continued ranting. The in-laws, having received an eviction notice from the real estate agent, had no choice but to vacate the new house reluctantly. Rumor has it that the in-laws and Amy's family, having lost their place to live, started renting an apartment, but the children's mischief and noise led to numerous complaints from neighbors. Due to the sheer number of complaints and the severity of the mischief, it seems the landlord could not stay silent, and they were evicted from the apartment within a month. Having lost their place to live again, the distressed in-laws shockingly stormed into Sean's office.
Call Sean. We are his family. We have something to say to him.
The receptionist, sensing something was wrong from their shouting in the lobby, discreetly contacted Sean while detaining Amy and her parents. Sean explained the situation to his boss, called the police, and the in-laws and Amy were detained when the police arrived. Sean appeared in front of the in-laws only after the police arrived. Seeing Sean, the in-laws resisted fiercely as they were being taken by the police, shouting at him,
"You ungrateful son.
Because of you, we lost our home. Take responsibility."
Calling the police? Are you insane? Is that how you treat your family?
To the desperately shouting in-laws and Amy, Sean calmly stated,
I don't have parents or a sister. I had people who were my parents and sister, but I cut ties with them a few days ago. You and I are strangers. I simply asked the police to deal with the nuisance in our company's lobby. What of it?
What?
Stunned by Sean's words, the in-laws were speechless. Amy, on the other hand, kept blaming Sean, crying and shouting, "You traitor, heartless," but was eventually taken away by the police. While the in-laws and Amy were being interrogated, we met once with Amy's husband and his parents. They revealed that Amy was the one who had the affair, and although he initiated the divorce, it wasn't finalized yet. Including the recent police incident, Amy's husband demanded a divorce again and sought alimony for the affair. Reluctantly, Amy agreed, and their divorce was finally settled. After the divorce, the children's custody was awarded to Amy's ex-husband. Taking care of the children with help from his parents, he disciplined them well, and now they are said to be very well behaved. After the police incident, the in-laws and Amy were released with just a stern warning and started living in a run-down cheap apartment. This was because, while living with us, they had spent their money on luxury items instead of contributing to the living and utility expenses, nearly depleting their savings. Amy, unaware of this, was furious.
What the heck? I didn't know about this. I was counting on your money for the alimony and living expenses.
That's your problem. You were the one who cheated and got divorced. Pay your own alimony. You brought this on yourself.
How dare you, you old witch?
Even the in-laws, who had doted on Amy, seemed to have lost their patience, and now they were constantly arguing about money. Amy, having cut ties with her affair partner, could not rely on anyone and had to start working part-time out of necessity. However, Amy seems to be causing trouble at her job, and it's only a matter of time before she gets fired. Despite these troubles, the in-laws' spending habits haven't changed. With their living expenses stretched thin and no chance of saving, their financial situation continues to deteriorate. The possibility of being evicted from their apartment due to rent arrears seems imminent. While hearing about the downfall of the in-laws through the grapevine, we used the money from selling the family land and duplex to buy a modest single-family home. Together with my kind husband, we are living a peaceful and happy life.